Before we go much farther, there are some baseline things we need to establish. As they talk about in the legal profession, we need to establish a foundation. There may be some terms that you're not familiar with. Hopefully we can clear that up. Just some baseline information as we go forward in the discussion. Terry, you want to kick us off on that as well?
Sure. One of the key inquiries in this statute is related to number of employees. There are some good things that happen for very small employers based on their number of employees, and there are certain obligations that apply to employers who have more than 50 employees. And those of you who are used to dealing with statutes like the Family Medical Leave Act are accustomed to having a rule that very specifically says, here is how you count your employees. You have to have 50 employees, and then that means, full-time employees or people who worked more than X number of hours. This statute is, and this is one of the places where it's internally inconsistent. For some provisions, it references your number of employees without providing any definition as to how you count them. For other sections, it defines employees as full-time employees and says that means anyone who works more than 30 hours a week. I don't know why they picked 30 instead of 40 like the Fair Labor Standards Act. But for other provisions, it says you count your number of employees by full-time equivalent. So even if you have your full-time employees and you have some part-time employees, to come up with your total number of employees, you have to add up all those part-time hours and divide by 120 to figure out your full-time equivalent. So it varies from section to section on how you count employees, and you really have to know which one you're looking at to figure out whether you're a large employer, whether you're an employer who will benefit from some of the tax credits. So that's one of the places where it's pretty inconsistent. I've had some clients say to me, well, I know that if I get to 50 employees in 2014, bad things are going to happen. How would it be if I just divided my company into several different entities and assigned employees to each of them to reduce my size? That's something that the statute has contemplated, and they've provided that if the employees of different entities are related, if there's common ownership or common management, then those numbers of employees are going to be aggregated to come up with the total for the employer. Some other creative employers said, well, how about if I just make everybody an independent contractor? That way I wouldn't have any employees and none of this would apply. And Clinton's provided some information on the independent contractor / employee comparison. And
right.
Clinton, if you tell us about that.
Okay. I won't go into too much detail because I gave a lot of it here in the slides, but this issue of employee versus independent contractor has been around for years. Probably many of you have dealt with it. What it really boils down to is the IRS came out with a test years ago. They started out with 17 factors and they added a bunch more, and then they took some off and prioritized them and made it confusing. What it really comes down to is how much control does an employer have over when, where, and who does work for them. That's what it really comes down to. So if you can tell someone, I need you to be here these times, I need you to do this, here's the equipment to do it, and you can't work for anybody else. That pretty much sounds like an employee for all intents and purposes. And so what happens is I've laid out a lot of bullet points here that you can take back and look over as people come up with ideas of, well, I think we could do this to have fewer employees. These are things to keep in mind. So one other note that I just wanted to throw out for the group is in 2007, the IRS came out with a new way for people who were being treated as independent contractors but felt they were employees to basically tattle on their employer or on the person that was contracting with them. as a way to say, you know, I'm really an employee. I shouldn't have to pay my half of FICA and Medicare tax. And so the IRS said, okay, well, here's a new method for you to let us know, and then the IRS they'll basically help sort it out is what will happen. Obviously, they're going to go to the employer and say, this person thinks they should be an employee. You obviously didn't treat them that way. Why? And at some point, somebody's going to have to pay some tax because it hasn't been paid. And that'll probably also have penalties and interest with it. So, again, it's in your notes there. If that affects you, it's there for you so you can explore that more.